Hey, we are live. Today is Tuesday, the 26th of March, already nearly into April 2019. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much, Marie. And Mary, should say Mary. It's not Marie, it's Mary. Thank you so much. Anyway, on the panel today, obviously, we have our Patricia, we have Plain Permaculture, and Trinity 4. So, hello, everybody.
Hi hello.
There.
Hello.
Hello. In a moment, you guys are going to talk, but me and Patricia would just like to say something, wouldn't we, Patricia?
Yeah.
I don't know if everybody's aware, but Sheeps and Neeps put a video out today. It seems that it's very tragic, but he seems to only have maybe a few weeks to live. And me and Patricia just want to say something because we're going to put a little video together, and I'm going to put, well, I'll put his PayPal account in the chat room right now, and I'll put it in as the evening goes along. And we're going to put a little video out for him because maybe he could still change things. Josh X reckons that if he has lots of fruit smoothies, real fruit, you could still turn this round. But he hasn't got any money, Sheeps. He's just, I don't know, on benefits. Now he's in a hospital. And so, obviously, I've put the PayPal out. And Patricia, do you want to say something?
Yeah, sorry, I was just about to cough then. Yeah, just to say, Des, I love you. And I'm going to send you some money through PayPal. And just want to say a big thank you to everyone that's helping him. I appreciate it. So thank you.
Yeah, he hasn't got much time. I've put people messaging me, sorry. I've put his PayPal account into the chat room, and I'll do it as the evening goes along. And obviously I'm going to put a little video out after this. But we wish him all the best and hope that there is some way of recovery. And obviously Josh X is going to talk to him and stuff, and hopefully maybe we can get him, he can get all this. He needs lots of fruit. He needs to have fruit smoothies. Sorry, all these messages are coming through now. Oh, there he is. He's in the chat room. Sheeps.
Oh, Sheeps, Des. Brilliant. I haven't got the link up yet. Hang on.
Des, my darling. We've just had a little talk to obviously put your PayPal in there, and I'm going to put a little video out on Sun and Moon afterwards. So, to Des. Patricia?
Yeah, sorry. We're just trying to get the watch page up so I can speak to him. But yeah, love you, Des. Don't know what else to say.
Well, Josh has been trying to call you today, Sheeps, just to let you know. So, yeah, you need to speak to Josh. Okay, so to Sheeps. Okay, Plain Permaculture at Trinity 4.
Hey. Sorry, Plain, you go ahead, mate.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say that's really hard to hear, and I hope he does make an effort to detox or whatever he can to stay with us.
Yeah, let's just hope. There's still hope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nothing's guaranteed in life, is it? That's why we should care much more about each other in the first place. We're here today, gone tomorrow as it is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we don't care enough about... Sorry, go on, Dave.
We're realizing more and more how, just like the earth has been damaged by decades of the wrong kind of agriculture or the wrong kind of farming business, well, that's had an impact on the human biosphere. Even if you're not conspiratorial, you have to admit that the quality of the food has deteriorated such that we are seeing an increase in the awful kind of illnesses that sheep has been afflicted with. It's really unfortunate, but it's a living example of the one of the reasons why it's so important for us to get back to a permaculture type mindset, both for the earth and for ourselves.
I hadn't actually realised that, sorry, we will get to the subject of this evening, but I hadn't realised that when they give a lot of these vaccines, they might have animal DNA in them. And then a nurse was telling me that when they find the cancer, obviously in the cancer, they use a lot of monkey DNA in vaccines. And of course, that's in the cancer. Not just that, I know it's diet, it's not having fruits and stuff like that, but it's actually the vaccines they're giving us, actually giving us the cancer. Because your body sees that as a foreign body, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it's like a sleeper cell program, I think. And again, being a little bit conspiratorial, one might suggest that this was known 30, 40, 50 years ago when we were getting these vaccinations already. They were thinking, you know, in a certain amount of time, 20 or 30 years from now, the impact of this will be such that 1 in 50, 1 in 20 will have a serious illness as a consequence of this. Yeah, I think so, possibly.
Which is probably very apt with you two guys coming on tonight, actually with Grow Your Own.
Yeah.
Because at least you know where it's been.
I mean, we've all spent so much time within what people call the matrix, or I call the unnatural system. And they've pulled us so far from what is natural that really anything from our behavior to our health, all of that has been corrupted. And with vaccines, I mean, once somebody has a way to put something into your body, they're going to just do whatever they can to make you sick. And it'll be a slow sort of kill, because if they kill people right away, then everybody will notice. So they just pull you even further into an unhealthy, unnatural state, really on all levels.
Actually, it's even cleverer. They encourage you to poison yourself.
Yeah.
They frighten you into thinking that you need a series of vaccines that you don't. They use glossy, silky marketing and merchandising to get you to choose, you know, drinks and food types, and they make it simpler for people to and cheaper for people to buy food that's worse for them and so on. So the entire system has been rigged to actually get us to not only love our captivity, but actually choose the things that kill us. You know?
Yeah, when you go into a grocery store, for example, all you see is numbers. It's symbology, and they control you with that. If you have a lower number in your mind, then you're tempted to take that product and put it in your body. Whereas you should be thinking the whole time whether something is real or not the price of something. And the non-organic food or the commercial, crap is all subsidized, and the cost you see is really not the whole cost of the product. And a lot of times the more expensive organic stuff is really cheaper when you take the whole cost into account, not to mention the environmental impact.
Yeah. Yeah, well,
Cooking with Josh rather a lot lately. It's, basically you need to eat things that are like, we're eating dead meat. So fruit and vegetables, they're alive. They're live things. The thing is, like, we're so badly trained. I know that you guys know this because you both plant your own, don't you? Anyway, both you two. But most of us, we just go to the supermarket. I remember my grandparents, growing things. But in the last sort of 20 years, nobody grows anything. We'll go to the supermarket to get our bag of plastic.
Well, I should say up front that my growing is nowhere near sufficient to sustain me or my family. It's only a fraction of our at this point in time. But so I'm nowhere where permaculture is at. I haven't achieved that yet, but that's that's what I'm, because it's really only been 3 or 4 years since I realized that I was sort of going along with the stream, just in the stream of making choices that weren't in my best interests, and supporting the system. And what I've been trying to do since then is to break away from that one step at a time, and a big part of that absolutely is getting used to growing your own, making the mistakes, learning how to make your crop a little bit more productive, realizing the sort of um, the regular responsibilities that having a crop of your own has, and of course, if you're not using pesticides, keeping it clear of bugs and whatnot. But this is perhaps where permaculture comes into its own more, where you're letting nature do more of the kind of pest control and moisture control and health and so on. And this is why I'm kind of interested in this conversation.
Yeah, it's a cooperative sort of symbiotic relationship with nature, and you sort of, instead of going against the flow of nature, you go with it, and nature will, you basically just introduce things to nature. Nature holds on to it, amplifies it, and then you sort of just live symbiotically with that. So the goal is always abundance, and you just kind of get the cream off the top, so to speak, and you have plenty to share and return back to the system in order for everything to continue. But we all are sort of stuck in our habits, and we all sort of depend on the unnatural system. And what really needs to take place now is a sort of transition to returning to that connection with the natural system. And by doing so, the unnatural system essentially will just dissolve away. I mean, it's a very possible thing, and we can do it over a relatively short time. Definitely we'll see signs of it within our lifetime if we really commit. I'll put it that way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that's a sensible kind of approach to consider this to be a lifetime project, because the majority of us are so reliant on the local supermarket and so far from knowing the worms and the soil and the seasons, such that we can manage our own food supply. And as I've heard you say yourself, that a lot of the abundance will come from a longer term strategy. You can only grow so many carrots in one season, but if you've got an apple tree, then you can pickle those apples, or you can jar those apples and jam them and so on. So I think we are talking about a gradual process, or a gradual kind of divestment from the unnatural system, and a move towards a more natural system. Now, when I started my sort of journey of trying to moving away from the supermarket model and so on, and trying to support local farmers, I started going to local farmer markets a few years ago, more sort of diligently. And I think that the majority of people are not interested in supporting that model at the moment. So it is a slow process, but I absolutely acknowledge that for myself, and I can speak really for myself, that my better way forward with my life is to is to move towards a time or a way where I am far more self-supporting of my food supply, and then I'm more supporting in my community with the abundant elements, and that kind of sharing or that abundance is something where we'll be able to share with our neighbors, with our fellow growers or whatever,
Start off
and
small,
that's
can't you? You can start off by doing microgreens.
absolutely. Well, I think this is where it's important to have to think of this not as like in year one, I'm going to be I'm going to have an orangery and I'm going to provide oranges to the local fruit makers. No, of course not. It is starting with something on a window box or whatever is appropriate in your situation. And I think this is an important aspect of this, is that we shouldn't be disheartened that in year 1, 2, or 3 we can't put together a farmstead, because the reality is for the most of us it's going to be a gradual process. And I mean, it may be a little different in America, but here in England I'm trying to find some land, and land is the land that's free to use is very, very hard to come by, or cheap to access, very hard to come by. My ideal would be had a few acres of land, and I was able to, over a period of years, start to turn that land into, land that was producing various crops and so on. But that's a little ways off for me at the moment, I think.
There's a guy named Ben Law, and he's over in the UK, and I think, leases a woodland plot or something.
Ah.
I don't know how it works over there, but you might look into him and see what he's doing.
All right, I'll check him out. Did you? Is it LAW, his surname?
Yeah, I think so. He's got a few books too that are really good.
Okay, thanks.
Can I just say that Mango's joined us? Hi, Mango.
Hello.
Hey, Mango. You're on with. We've got Australia to America today, so that's good, isn't it? You're on with Permaculture and Trinity for Patricia and me.
Hi.
Yeah, all the way from Australia. It's tomorrow morning for him.
Cool. Well, yeah, I think that is one way to go, is to lease some land, because it's not too expensive. It depends on whether there's a property on it, of course. But that's one way to go, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, the whole owning land thing is a big issue. I mean, really, none of us. You can't really own the land. You can't take it with you.
Yep.
So it's a hard thing, especially when people have taken over pieces of land by force and they're now guarding it or defending it. It's a hard thing, but we definitely need to return to land wherever possible.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a bit idealistic. I also think that we have an entitlement to some land for our whilst we're here. And so that would be my ideal, is that everybody upon birth basically was entitled to 3 acres or a few hectares or whatever of land, arable land, and you were able to use that as appropriately when you came of age. And but there wouldn't be this sort of, well, my family has gathered up thousands of acres over the centuries and we don't we don't share it, or whatever. That model is unfortunately part of the system that's unnatural, because nowhere in nature do the animals sort of say, right, well, we're going to have this and no one else can ever use it. Things are shared around, aren't they? So
wasn't that how our law was, though? The common land, that people could have the common land. Not now, but that's what it was set up for, wasn't it? So we could graze our animals and all this kind of stuff.
There probably was like that. I don't.
Oh yeah, you weren't born here, were you?
Well, I was born here, but that's not how I was raised. I was raised in South Africa.
Right.
But I think that going back enough time, of course, because prior to all this legal hoopla, there was a natural heritage that we were entitled to. But I think we probably going back centuries since there was any kind of sense of that. But who knows? Anyway, I think for now, it is a matter of starting with a little bit of a garden plot, a window box, maybe some allotment, or maybe a lease of some land. And yeah, I mean, I don't need to own land. For me, it's not about having land to kind of walk over and say this is mine and no one else can use it. But I would like to have my own plot that I could use for my life, and then for my family to kind of develop something on, because if I was going to plant some apple trees and create an abundance in my line, then I would want that abundance to kind of be passed down the line. And I mean, it's not to say I want to be like the churches and have thousands and thousands of acres and hundreds of thousands of properties around the country. It's nothing like that.
Yeah,
but it is
it's
about
the natural inheritance.
Yeah. And how much does one family, 5 people, 10 people need? Not an awful lot, I would have thought. And what we see today is massive, vast. I've been driving around the country around my region, looking at properties and farms and things like that, and there's so much land that's just sitting vacant, sitting free, and it's either being parceled up by the government or it's been designated as it can't be used for this, or it can't be, you can't put a little house on it or anything like that. So there's so many restrictions that are in place. It does kind of make it challenging.
Yeah, over here, there's a lot of older farmers that have land or a farm, and they really struggle. They don't have any family to pass it on to, and they really struggle to find, people that are really interested in living that way and taking care of it. So that's one issue, at least over here.
I've been trying to find a farmer just like that, actually. Here, because I agree. I think there must be plenty of people who are sitting on that. Actually, one farmer I was talking to recently, he doesn't have any children, although his wife has a son. So he has a stepson, and I think the stepson is sitting, looking at the property and hoping, obviously, something's going to come his way. And I guess there is that you tread lightly when it comes to people and their land, because there's families thinking, you're trying to snatch stuff from them. The legal people are getting involved and so on. But that would be an ideal. I think that for anybody else listening to this, thinking, well, how do I do that? That's what I've come up with. If I'm a farmer, who I could say, hey, listen, let me use a few acres, half an acre, whatever. Let me just start with something and prove that I'm going to use the land well. We could come up with some kind of arrangement over time where, we share the produce, you get a return for it. Your farm is, got life in it again. And, it's not like I want to come and take your land off you, but I do want to build something up so that my children, if they want to work the land, and they wouldn't have to go through what I've had to.
Yeah. One of the things about finding land that's hard is that everything is sort of through a middleman, and it's hard to, for instance, when we bought our land, we bought it, then we started really talking to the neighbors and all this stuff. And you figure out later, I should have offered less, or essentially you don't know, or you can't network until you've actually lived in the area. So I would encourage you to, kind of find an area that really is drawing you and sort of live there, and then sort of community network and really talk to people that way. Then you might find that personal connection, that farmer that's willing to, have you take on his land or whatever.
Totally. I mean, I was having some really good conversations with this one farmer, and Yes, I think the son-in-law, or the stepson rather, was feeling a little bit threatened by the conversation, so it hasn't really gone anywhere on this occasion. But you know, this guy has lived. He grew up in that area, and so he knows all the local farmers. You know, and this is definitely the way to get in, because you know, when you arrive from the city, the farm people treat you like an outsider. But if you've been
Yeah.
living in their town for a year, and you've been kind of working there and getting to know people, yeah, then you'll start to go, oh yeah, yeah, I know Farmer Joe down the road. He's got like a small plot with a little house on it. Maybe, you know, for a peppercorn rent, you can kind of go and spend a year there, because it is about, you know, people need to know you're not some kind of city yuppie who's just, you know, coming for the jollies, you know.
Yeah. And rural people are very personal. So even in sales of their land or even objects, they really like to make that personal connection with the buyer.
Cool. Well, that's probably one of the more challenging aspects of it, you know, in terms of then turning the land into a permaculture project. You know, I guess you've experienced this. It does take a little bit of lead-in time. It does take a little bit of time before you're producing abundance.
Yeah, I would say if you're really, really motivated and you've got some help, maybe 5 years, but realistically more like 10 or more.
So one needs to allow for you know, a day job, and you know, some other kind of way of generating kind of the coin, to because you still need to go to the supermarket for a few years.
Yeah, unless you're getting really creative about bartering or something.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, but I mean, until you've got enough produce to kind of replace. I mean, that was my experience this year. I was working on a guy's property with a bunch of plum trees, sorry, and you know, when the plums came in season, you know, we were picking out on plums, but you know, that only lasts a few weeks, and then it's like, okay, now we're hungry again, you know. So like it does, you know, and you know, it takes a time. Realistically, it takes a time to get to a point where you know, there's enough produce to mean that it's your main. It's how you earn enough, or how you create enough abundance to barter or trade or exchange for the things that you don't grow yourself.
Yeah. I mean, it takes. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, and then there's the and I don't know how you balance this yourself, but like in this world, we do like to go to the theater, or see a, you know, go, or maybe go on an air trip, or you know, on a holiday even, or something like that. You know, sometimes there's costs associated with life that mean you need to earn a little bit more than just the bit that fills your tummy. Do you get what I mean?
But
Have you?
well, the thing that I think people are a little delusional is the way they prioritize things in life. So if you're running around and you're taking all these vacations and all this stuff, but you don't have the basics covered, that's a little backwards to me. But yeah, I understand what you're saying.
No, I guess this is no. I'm asking how, if you, because like I spent time with a guy. I lived once for a little time with a guy in the mountains, and he had you know, no electricity, no services whatsoever, and he was up in a little tin hut, and you know, that's where he lived, and they were very happy. But he had no money, or very little money with which to to be in the regular world. And so I'm not making a judgment about that. I'm just asking you the question: is that do these things go hand in hand? Is it like, okay, so you're going to take the permaculture route, and as a part of that, you're also consciously distancing yourself even more from the ability to transact commerce or transact things in the regular world, as it were.
So with permaculture, I mean, it really depends on the personal perspective, or what the goals of each individual is, because there's many people that use permaculture and permaculture techniques and ideas for their business. So it can be related closely to the normal monetary system. It doesn't have to be a sort of reclusive hermit-like lifestyle. It can be applied in whatever way you wish.
So you've seen the permaculture model extend such that people are kind of, they're not just scraping by and eating like plum soup for 9 months of the year.
It's the whole spectrum, really. It's like flat Earth. There's all sorts of type of people and abilities. There's a guy named Sepp Holzer in Austria, and he's one of the most sued farmers, or one of the most fined farmers. But he earns, I don't know, it's like at least $500,000 a year. I don't know. It's probably more, but he makes a good living, in other words. And he just gets creative in the way he applies that. So for instance, he does a lot of tours, and he'll charge extra during the tours because people will take back seeds and plants and all this stuff. But if he sold the seeds and plants, he'd run into all sorts of other problems. So he gets creative in the way he interacts with both systems.
Okay, that's good.
But there's all sorts of different examples like that. There's tons of permaculture people, online, or you can connect with them in real life. And permaculture people are pretty open. So
yeah, but like other groups, just don't mention flat Earth.
Yeah, I mean, I've brought up flat Earth, and there's people that are open to it, but there's others that they've really attached to that environmental protect the planet sort of mentality.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's like it's one of those interesting dichotomies. Kind of where I'm at with the flat Earth is that it's a self-cleaning system. So the moral dialectic, if you like, is that, okay, well, actually you don't need to do as much to look at the Earth because it's so fantastically self-cleaning. However, what your heart should tell you to do is to do the very best for the Earth, because that's naturally what should be, our system. I mean, I don't know that everybody agrees with my summation, but I think the oceans self-clean, and I think the air itself somehow.
Yeah.
So, a lot of the climate change, or that agenda is for me just another one of those sort of things they use to tax us and to pressure us and to justify government and to keep us
for sure
under the cosh. But yeah, no, that's nice to know. I will obviously be, well, my plan anyway would be to expand. I mean, I had last year's growing a little painful in some ways because I didn't want to use any any toxic products and insecticides or anything like that. So I lost my Brussels sprout crop to some like whitefly or some shit. So there's for me anyway, there's a lot of learning that, you know what I mean, because it's not the same as just going down to the plant store and buying some Roundup or whatever and just squatting away. It's plenty to learn.
You'll get a lot of bugs at first probably, but if you keep throwing plants in, you keep throwing seeds like cover crops, and you keep recycling all of that material and energy into your beds, eventually nature will rebalance itself and you won't have those bug problems. So you just keep continuing, and things will balance themselves out.
Do you do like a video log of your growing?
No, I'm sure if I did, I'd be way more popular. People love the personal stuff, but no, I'm trying to go a little bit more private where I am. But there's another piece of property my family owns that my brother's doing a similar thing, but more public. And there's an event place there, and so that type of public outreach will probably be done on that place.
Makes me think of something you said on the last Sun and Moon show. You were talking about collectivizing, getting people getting together and doing a land project, or doing a project where they could bring people together and do train people and so on.
Essentially
please go on.
I was going to say essentially that was an idea of combining permaculture demonstration sites or research institutes with flat earth meetings and events and stuff. And really, I mean, an actual realization of that project would be really cool, but it's the preparation of that really will fix a lot of things. So it's kind of like how when you're tested at school, the indoctrination centers, the test is really a confirmation of what you've learned. It's not really, you don't learn from a test. It's just somebody checking.
Yes.
So the project would be cool, but it's the preparation for the project that would really send everybody down the right path.
Yeah, I mean, there are just I'm not very good at admin, but I know that from this, I was looking at getting involved in a hemp project, a hemp growing project here, and there are grants. It came to my attention when I was looking at it. There are grants available for certain kinds of projects that I'm speaking now for the UK. I can't speak about anywhere else, but in the UK there are grants available for projects that are doing the kind of permaculture thing, believe it or not. And so if you're in the UK and you're into this kind of thing and you've got a hand, you're okay at admin, then you should look at applying for some kind of funding. Obviously, you would need to have some land. You need to be able to demonstrate that you were going to be doing some kind of permaculture type thing, and what kind of outcomes and so on. But there are grants available, and perhaps such a thing might be viable. My takeaway from like this conversation that was happening about a year or two ago in the flat earth community about people striking out and maybe some money together and getting a piece of land, and then being able to put a little homes or some kind of homesteads and stuff for people. I think those projects are kind of fraught with a bunch of challenges, because we discovered in Flat Earth very much individuals, and the idea that because we know that the Earth is flat means we'd make a good community of permacultures. I don't know that they're necessarily one doesn't necessarily follow the other, and in the same way as 5 years ago, before I thought knew the Earth was flat, when I equally would have said, well, if I was to gather together 20 or 30 strangers and share a piece of land with them, I don't know how well that would work. In a few years' time, I think there'd be that whole kind of strange thing going on, between tensions between this group and that and this and so on. So I guess why I'm saying this is because I feel like we are in this together, and there is an absolute essential or necessity for people or communities to form, because it takes a village to raise a child, it takes a village to support an old person with dementia, it takes a village to grow all the necessary things that you would need for a balanced diet, and for a village, for all the various tasks and skills and so on that you need. So it absolutely requires that, but in a way, and this is for discussion, of course, but in a way, I feel like we are also very much on like our own path, our own mission, our own task, if you like, and the more we give away that kind of I'm on my own mission, I have to become the skilled operator of myself and of my world around me. I have to be that, and I'm not reliant anymore on the supermarket and the remote control and the internet shopping and so on for my life. And I think, because my sister said to me the other day, why would you consider going to work on a kibbutz? And I think the difficult,
What was that?
Sorry, to go work on a kibbutz. You know what they are?
I don't know what that is.
Oh, sorry. Okay, sorry. Okay, I just assumed everyone knows what that term means. I think it's only in Israel, but I'd be corrected on that. But a kibbutz is like it's a farm, and it's a collective farm, but it's sort of owned by, I don't know whether it's the state or by one person. Now you can go and work on these kibbutzes for free, or rather, you can go and work and live on these kibbutzes. You don't earn anything really. You just get your food and board in exchange for labor and your time. But you would only go and spend 3 months, 6 months on the kibbutz, and then leave it, and then you'd be back in the system and back, in a regular day job, having to, do the thing. So you don't actually gain anything in the longer term. You good in the 6 months you're there, but what good is it to you next year? And I think the thing about us coming, my cat's walking on the phone. The thing about the model where, let's just say, one guy has this land, and then you kind of come and work on it with him. It's you're never going to be planting your own orange tree. You're never going to be making that like long-term commitment to your own permaculture. It's always going to be somebody else's. And I think this is what one of our challenges, for me anyway, feels like is about being brothers and sisters with each other, being connected to each other, and being a community with each other, but also being like this one powerful soul, this one powerful individual that is all of these things that we've had taken from us, you know. And for me, when all of this started falling apart, my world started falling apart in 2015. I realized then that I had to kind of make myself a man again. You know, I had to go out and work with my hands. I had to go and so I taught myself a whole bunch of woodworking stuff, and I went back to the gardening and putting stuff in the ground and so on. And it's been like an evolution of sorts, or a revolution of sorts, to a way and of being. And I think that each of us needs to be encouraged, if possible, to make that kind of pilgrimage within, to be all that we can be. And the more we rely on systems outside of us, the less we are that. And the easy example is, say, a calculator. Back in the day, everybody could have done basic sums, worked out range for, after buying something, in their head, no problem. But with a calculator in their hand, people forget how to do that. So the same is true with the supermarkets. The same is true with somebody else doing all my growing for me. The same is true with living in a neat little tidy box where, the worst I have to worry about is the wind blowing down my fence panels. And I think this is something that we should be. Well, for me, it feels like part of what I want to do tonight is to encourage myself and others to think that our trajectory needs to be sort of where you're at, where you've got your own land. It would be great if you developed it to a point where you were inviting people on and doing permaculture kind of training or so on. But it's not quite the same as if you parceled it off and said to a pal, or you said to me, "Oh, well, look, you can come and farm here for a few years or a few months or whatever." But and as a stepping stone towards doing it for myself, fine. But as a longer term vision of, okay, I'm gonna just live on plain permaculture and for X number of years, that's not really gonna work, because it needs to be my land. I need to meet you at the marketplace and say, hey, here's my peaches. Let me check out your plums, and we'll swap some out. We need to become the kings of our domain. We need to become the land owner, not landowners, but the masters of our fate, and we only become that when we're the ones growing and producing.
Yeah, it's a return to source on all levels. And if like to truly know something, you have to interact with it. And so if we're all trying to get to know Earth, then we've got to start interacting with it. And if you're going to interact with something, you want to be beneficial. You want to be a beneficial partner and have a symbiotic interaction. And that's how you really get that feedback from the world we live in. And you can truly get that natural perspective or balanced understanding of where we are, what we're doing, and that type of thing.
Cool. Well, I think I couldn't agree with you more. It is about getting back into the land, and hey, it's not for everyone. But there's a place for everyone. I think I've felt this with my wife Andrea. She's not as into the farming aspect of it as I am, but she would be more inclined to some of the other aspects. Whether it be on the micro green growing or the herb side or the potting, the jar, when it comes to like making jams and all of that sort of thing. So there is, not everyone is going to go and be a farmer, but it is definitely about getting much closer to that. And I think, it's when a guy like yourself who's already 6 years, 7 years down this track, or your whole life you've been sort of moving in this direction. It's incumbent to be mindful that the vast majority of us have lost touch the land from the very youngest of ages, and it's increasingly so today. I mean, you may not know this, but the number of people that make comments about my son walking barefoot, we even had the police at the door the other day because
What?
barefoot. No shit. Yeah, man.
That's crazy.
Twice they came because there'd been a complaint that my son and I had been seen walking barefoot, and
Oh no.
oh yeah, and I mean, we had my little boy. He's not yet 2, down in a river yesterday or
Oh
the
my
day
goodness
before,
gracious me.
and
Sorry. Wow.
what's that?
I'm just, oh my goodness gracious me. Wow.
It's crazy.
Yeah. Well, we had him down in the river, and there's this other dad who's got his daughter who's 4 years old, so a lot older, and she's walking in her Wellington boots, her gum boots, and in the river, and the father's holding the hand, and he's like, don't let your hand get in the water. I mean, we're basically, the kids can't. It's becoming so frightened of touching things of nature and being about nature and so on. So it's becoming this sort of trajectory away from nature, away from the land is picking up at such a pace, and you'll see this is one of my little soapboxes actually that I've just jumped on, where you'll see children, their parents kind of with their fancy sunglasses, and they bought their kid like a pair of sunglasses to match, and they think they're so cool because the kid's wearing sunglasses, and they got the headphones on, they got the cap on, the shoes, the clothing. Almost nothing is coming into contact with nature anymore, and this is where the majority of people are going. So actually, when it comes to wanting to go find farmers, I think one of my experience recently has been there's definitely a continued trend away from the farm and into the city, which means there is definitely going to be opportunities and openings, in the country for people who are looking to go that way.
I've found that people, things are getting a little bit more extreme. So there's a lot of what you're saying, but there's also a lot of people being drawn out to the land and doing the right thing. And if your perspective is just in the sort of negative, everything is turning into a city sort of thing, then you're not going to see a lot of the, for instance, permaculture projects or things like that, which there's a lot of that stuff going on. It's just that it's not advertised. It's not in your face. It's not online. So, I mean, you were talking about farming, and in permaculture, it's probably a more accurate word to use gardening. And really, we should all have very big gardens, and that's how you, it's probably a better word to describe.
Okay, thanks. I like that. Yeah.
I'm not saying you can't use farming. I was just saying gardening is like, I can't imagine someone like your wife not being into gardening. I can imagine them not being into farming though, but
sure. Yeah, that's fair to say. And it is a bit like that, isn't it?
What you're saying is, if you say permaculture, people think, what's that? Gardening. Everybody knows what that is.
Yeah, I mean, gardening is the biggest aspect of it, or the thing people attach to probably the most.
In an ecologically friendly way.
Yeah, I mean, most people kind of poo-hoo the subject because they think it's just hobby and gardening and all this stuff, but it's a reigniting your consciousness and awareness and how you interact with nature, since we're not really apart from nature. even though everybody likes to pretend and put boxes and boxes and boxes around themselves in order to do so. But yeah, I mean, it's really a return to common senses and application of living life how we all should be.
And do you find you live more in tune with the seasons as well then?
Yeah. So if I didn't have to do things like schedule things out like this, I wouldn't even go off of time, really. I would just go off natural cycles. And when you think of clocks and time and all that stuff, a lot of it is keeping you in an unnatural rhythm. Someone's arbitrarily come up with seconds and hours, even a week, even though some people might say there's something to a week. But a lot of those things are just made up rhythms that are forced onto you. And it's a lot of, especially the time changing thing, that's an exercise in mind control. It disorients you, and it really affects children when they're kept on schedules.
It affects the circadian rhythm as well. Yeah, the natural rhythm of sleep and waking and so on. And that gets, if your alarm clock is going off at 6 o'clock every day, and then that gets altered by an hour all of a sudden. I'm not that you should be on an alarm clock. You know, it's the daylight that wakes you really, and the night time you go to bed.
If anyone has something they have to wake up for, but it's not super important, or they could be late for it or whatever, try setting your inner alarm clock. It's amazing how precise that thing can be. You can set it
just to say our clocks go forward this weekend, by the way, so we lose an hour's sleep this weekend.
Oh, it's already happened for us over here.
Yeah, you're earlier than us.
It's all made up, but yeah. So you can set your inner alarm clock to things like people showing up. Like I did it one time for people showing up on my land, and it's not even related to light or to time or any of that stuff. Once you realize how miraculous and sort of magical and crazy this world is, there's all sorts of things you can do and retrain yourself to connect with.
I like that. No, I'm willing. I agree with you, because I've been consciously sort of doing that. I stopped wearing a watch about 3 years ago, and I've been trying to let my body tell me when I need to get up, when I need to sleep, and so on. And I've found over this last year or longer that my body is responding to the cycles of the seasons, and we get a very long night in the winter here in England, and a very long day in the summer. And my body's sort of been responding to that. Food-wise, it's been responding to the different temperatures and the different seasons and so on. So I'm more fascinated by that, because that's obviously where I'm kind of hoping to go. A lot more barefoot time, a lot more like nature's telling me to rest now, or this is a very busy time and energetic time, and follow that.
Yeah, I used the example before that I live in a very hot climate and we don't have AC, but we've designed our house to have passive cooling. But anyways, so we're exposed to the heat and the cold of our climate, and our body adapts to that. Yeah. Whereas somebody who has AC, it's inside, it's going to be fall or spring essentially, and then when they go outside, it's like 110. And I mean, people break down and probably have health problems because of that. There's just so many things your body your body has cycles just like nature, and your body goes
Yeah.
through things, shedding, putting a thick skin on for winter, all that sorts of stuff. And when you go barefoot, like one summer I went barefoot on my family's property, and it has a lot of rocks, and you build up a callus on the bottom of your foot, and your feet stay a lot cleaner. When you're walking on rocks and stuff like that, it hits all your pressure points, and you have that sort of reflexology sort of stimulation throughout your body. It does so many things.
Yes. My 2-year-old boy, he's almost 2. He's been barefoot, as I was saying earlier on, all his life. He's never worn shoes, and he loves walking over. Yeah, he loves walking over the stones. He loves walking over pebbles. He loves walking over the sharp stones. People are like, "How is he doing it?" Well, he's been doing it since he loves the tactile expression. And as you were just saying, I think there's all those.
Yeah, it starts to feel good.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely right. So I agree. I've had this experience of traveling from, say, South Africa to England, because I used to do that quite often, and you've got a completely different season. So you go from a hot place to a cold place, and it takes you a while for your blood. We used to say, I don't know whether this is true, but we used to say that your blood is thicker in the cold weather and thinner in the hot weather. And so it does take something like that. I mean, I don't, I used to believe that when I believed in material science. So I don't know how these things work, but I know that you're right, that the body is constantly attuning itself. So if it's in a winter phase, then it's kind of prepared for those kinds of conditions. And if it's in a summer phase, it's prepared for that. Which I wanted to segue back to the conditioning, just to throw this into the ether. And that is this idea that I now carry, that because the ether is an energy, when you put the ether or the air through an air conditioner and you extract all of that moisture and that information out of the air, you're actually reducing the quality of the air. This is my theory. I can't back it up by anything other than this is what
for sure.
And so I think that the long-term air conditioning, aside from any sort of the bugs that might get into the filters of the air conditioner itself, I think the quality of the air, it's a little bit like being in a basement. You know that air can kind of get robbed of some of its potential value. So I'm not a fan of air conditioning anymore either.
Yeah, the air qualities, there's no comparison. I mean, you can instantly feel the difference in just regular air versus a conditioner.
Right. Have you gone for a roof insulation of some sort, or you?
Yeah, we have that too, but so we found that we open up the windows at night, let all the cool air in, then we close it during the day, and even like 110 degrees, it'll be maybe 80 inside most of the day. And when you go inside, it feels like air conditioning. I mean, it feels really cool.
Yeah.
And it's
sorry, go.
I was going to say, it's about the difference between the outside and inside, more so than keeping it a certain temperature.
Sure. Okay. No, because some people put soil and grow grass and stuff on their roof. So I just wondered if maybe you're taking that approach.
Oh, it's not that much of a natural building, but a lot of the functions we put in, like passive solar, passive heating and cooling, they're in how should I say, we're taking stuff from the natural building world, but we had a bunch of scraps from my dad's place where we built buildings over there. So we just use a lot of reused material and stuff.
Awesome. Do you have children?
No, I don't.
Okay. It certainly adds an interesting
I bet.
Thing. I have older children. We have older children, so they kind of pass through, or we we taught them the heliocentric version of world. So one's at university and the other one's just about to join her at university later this year. So they're kind of, they're not as interested in this. But this little young fella that we got, Alexander, he's obviously going to come up into it, it's just to be able to bring someone into that environment and give them that feels to me like the most important thing that I can do, now that I'm not a heliocentrist.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy when you hear flat earthers saying, oh, well, we send our kids to normal school, but we tell them to just question what they've learned or whatever. I don't know, but that stuff is so far from where we should be. You're starting this. They're going to end up where you are, whereas you really want them to progress further than you got in life towards the natural.
Yeah, I would say though, to be fair, it's a bit like the me, where you've been working in a kind of city type of job or whatever, and to sort of break, you now that the earth is flat, say you to break away from the system takes a period of time. And then of course when you've got children who are part way through or a third of the way or even half way through their education, everybody around you, I mean, this is, you must know this, everybody in your family, or most everybody in your family, thinks you're nuts because you say the earth is flat. And now you say, well, you're going to pull that child out of school, and the mother isn't kind of in, or the grandmother's not on board with it, and people are going, what are you doing, and how are you're I know the answer to these words, but this is what people are having to face up to, is like, I've set this child up for this education system. They've got their heart set on, and a lot of youngsters have got their heart set on a university career and and then at this and that, because they've watched Sex and the City, or they watched Friends, or all this programming that we get from the American, all this programming we get on the TV, which has set these youngsters up for a wanting to be a part of the rat race. So for you to then say, oh, well, by the way, I'm now going to quit your school. You got 3 or 4 years left, or 5 years left of school. We're going to quit that, and we're going to, you're going. I mean, I have to say, I only found out the Earth was flat 2015. So my daughter was, I think she had a year left of high school, and she's studying history and these subjects that, like, I'm telling her, history is, we kind of fell out a bit, I mean, I wasn't such a cool dad anymore, because I was saying her whole reality is predicated on a whole raft of lies. And whilst it took me a little time to come to terms with that, there's people who haven't come to terms with that. So I'm extremely sympathetic to those who are having to juggle this, because this is what we do. Hey, we have this cognitive dissonance. We know that it's a kind of a sham, but we end up still paying our taxes. We end up still paying penalty notices for our speeding or whatever, and we pay our energy bills when we know we're being ripped off and robbed, and blind. So we're making decisions all the time to kind of, to go along with it. With this young boy that we've got now, he was a flat Earth baby. I'd already discovered that I'd been lied to, and that the entire way that I'd gone about my own life and my children's life had been predicated on this bullshit. So I said to my wife, I'd be very happy if we ended up having another child, because, I would do it completely differently. No birth certificate, no education of the system and all of this. So no vaccines. And so fortunately, in this case, my wife was just starting to kind of switch on herself. So she actually made an appointment to have his birth certificate signed, and the appointment was 10 o'clock in the morning. I phoned at 9 o'clock that morning and said, he's not coming, by the way. I'd finally got my wife to agree that we were going to try and hold the line and not go for the birth certificate. So we went down that route. We got him a passport without a birth certificate eventually.
Wow.
And yeah, so we're good to go. When it comes to that, we've gone through that process. But and in his case, we will be able to set him up from the start, not expecting to go to school, because you see, you do it without even realizing it. You're out walking with your kid and you see other school children. You might say, oh, look, there's some school children, and you'll be joining them in 2 or 3 or 4 years time, kind of thing. And this is what a lot of parents will be sort of preparing their child for, the future career through the scholastic system and so on and so forth. Well, at least with this kid, we never have to set him up with that. We have to, he may come to me and say, oh, why haven't you sent me to school? Because, there's lots of children there, and it's a great place to play. But to try and take your children when they're 10, 12 years old, take them out of that system, there's not enough. It feels like there's not enough to offer those children right now, because their parents are more than likely stuck in a 9-to-5 job. They wouldn't be able to sort of, not that schooling gives them much, I think 20 minutes a day, you should probably be able to replace the useful stuff that school gives. The rest of it's crap. So
it just takes away stuff. It doesn't give anything.
Yeah. Well, that's right. I mean, the best thing that children say about school is, it gives them a peer group. But again, do you want a peer group of people who are, who've had their brains, removed from the age of 7? So
yeah.
All I wanted to say on that was that I'm kind of, I don't judge anyone on that, and I don't give parents a hard time. I think in 10 years' time, maybe there will be a lot more people who've kind of had that chance from the very beginning to go, we're going to steer the ship in a different direction. It just feels like a little late in the day. But I agree with you. I think that, ideally people will say, shit, no more school. You're coming home. I mean, I've been trying to divest my children. I've been saying, stop doing the homework, stop doing the shit. And they just do better and better at school. So
yeah, who wants to send their children to that?
Yeah, well, I mean, you see, now this is interestingly, I was starting to make out like school was a terrible thing, but the problem with that is that your children then start to feel like, so Dad, you're undermining all the work that I'm doing. My daughter was quite upset with me. She was working quite hard, and I was saying, this is, you're wasting your time, and this is bullshit history. It doesn't even stack up. And so, and the systems, all these ugly things. I mean, the first year for me, 2015, 2016, was a little bit, I wasn't popular at the dinner table. My wife, my children, none of them were happy with the stuff I was talking about. And, it put a certain strain on them. So it's the way I see it is that, yes, I've set my older children up with this heliocentric system and education and so on. But they already know that the earth is possibly not a ball. So they're at the age of 18 or 19 or whatever, and they already have insights that I never had, because of having to listen to me for a while. They already know things that are going to mean that they can divest themselves of this system if they get to that point. Because here's the thing, I think this has brought me nicely to a little summation of this 10-minute babble that I've just given you. But this is that that I've thought about this, and I think almost like it says in the Bible, not that I'm pushing the Bible here, but it says in the Bible that you've got to kind of you've got to go and see, you've got to go and test it for yourself. You've got to go and taste the fruit of the system that's here, and you've got to choose to leave it. You see, because it's like the Sodom and Gomorrah thing. You've got to go down there and taste the wares of the broth, as it were, and choose to know it tastes a certain way, and choose to kind of go away from it. Because if you were to say to your children, right, what we're going to go and live on an Amish settlement, and you are never going to ever see TV again, and you're never going to see, you're never going to go to a bright light city again and stuff like that, then you're creating like a barrier that you're preventing your own offspring from kind of getting to make their own. We have to it's almost like the cookie jar thing or the alcohol thing. Try the alcohol, it's poison, but I want you to try it. Okay, I've tried it. I've had enough. Thank you very much. So I think that's the upside of this, is that we were meant to come into the system. We were meant to see it. We were meant to try it. We were meant to make mistakes. We were meant to learn from it, grow from it, and then find our way to that higher way of being. I couldn't have forced you to take that. I don't think that nothing in my life no one in my life could have forced me to have taken the steps to change who I am and to change the man that I am and the human that I am and so on, but for coming to this truth for myself. So there is, there is that, and I think we're in that. Maybe it's a lifetime, maybe it's 50 years, maybe it's 20 years, whatever, maybe it's 100 years, but we're in that period of which it is a case of people need to be. We've been given this ugly system, and we need to look at it, we need to test it, and we need to walk away from it and find a better way. I'll finish there.
Yeah. Well, I definitely wasn't I wasn't talking bad about anybody who's their children's in the school system or any of that stuff. I understand all the programming and all the societal peer pressure to do that sort of thing. But I was just saying that we need good people that are aware of stuff to do what I think we all naturally want to do and are drawn to do. And if those of us that are into doing good natural things don't do that, then nothing will change. Just like if you're a flat earther and you're scared of how people will view you if you bring them the flat earth information or whatever, then you might not ever speak up. But what if you were the only person that person was going to interact with that has that knowledge? I mean, we have to all really share the truth and be genuine in all aspects of our life. And being fake just for the sake of getting along to get along really will not bring us anywhere. I mean, if we're going to have arguments and fights and there's going to be drama and all this stuff because we're genuine and we clash at different points, then so be it. But what will result from that is a more real, everything will sort of level out where it should be or balance out where it should be. And at the very least, if things are genuine, then you can see, you can have a better perspective on what everything is. But right now we have a very fake society where everybody's doing unnatural things and pretending to be someone they're not. And, we need good people to do something. We need good people to speak up. We need people that are remotely interested in natural things to start reconnecting to Earth and the natural system. And after they've done it for themselves, then they can help their family, the outer community or the local community, and then it'll just spread just like awareness has with Flat Earth. So
I love your optimism, brother. I think that's because you get to be barefoot. Lawrence, that's very good. No, I think that's absolutely right. I don't, like I hope I don't come across pessimistic. I know, getting out in the street and trying to wake people up on the flat Earth thing sometimes does leave one feeling a little bit like, gosh, why are people so blind and deaf and dumb on this topic? And so you have to allow for the possibility that the unnatural system ways is there. It's I'm not saying it has to be this way. There's that theory that this is a proving ground, a testing ground, and so for that reason, there's always going to be an unnatural system that continues to exist in some way. But for the same reason we go and share the idea that the Earth is flat, we are looking to encourage people to move towards a natural way of being and a natural way of stewarding or husband, caring for our land, our Earth. And it is by the example of people like yourself, and then who share that potential for, a way of living. And I think that's what it has, this is the balancing act, isn't it? Because typically today, the only people that can go in farming or large scale gardening are people who come from land, who already have land. But there are definitely ways for us to move towards being, in touch with the land and farming or permaculturing our way into a sustainable life. Because this is where the rubber hits the road, isn't it? Is that we want to be permaculture, but it has to be sustainable. It has to be a way that you can raise a family and you have the time to communicate and nurture and so on. I mean, having just gone through 2 years of this little boy, and 50, I suppose it's, a little older now than it was when last time around, but it's quite time consuming, and as is farming. And so, it needs to be a sustainable model. And unfortunately, with a lot of the way that the agriculture is set up in the world today, it's so difficult for even an established farmer to, make it through. And again, I don't want to come across pessimistic, because I'm actually extremely optimistic about the potential for us to kind of regain that connection, and it will come from learning from the experience of people like yourself. So
Yeah. I'm just curious, how much have you looked into permaculture?
Well, not in. I mean, I wouldn't claim to be very well read on it.
Yeah. Well, I would encourage, if you can find somebody that teaches a PDC, a permaculture design course, to take one of those. You can find them. Let's see. There's one online if you wanted to go that way. That Jeff Lawton does. It's somewhat expensive for a one-time thing, but if you view it as you only do it once and it sets you up for life, then it's not that big of a deal. It's like one college course. It's like $1,000 or $1,500 or something, and it's worth it. I've done it just for the formality. I mean, I knew it before, but yeah. So if you take a PDC, people will kind of bring you through. It'll organize permaculture in your mind a little bit more, and ideally they'll have maybe some in-person demonstrations or things. But I mean, you don't have to take a PDC to learn it. I didn't, although I did take a PDC just to, in case I was gonna do a business with my brother. Anyways, long story, but whatchamacallit?
Is there like
you can volunteer. There's I know here in America there's a site called Woofers. It's like
I know.
WOO.
Yep.
You know
Yep.
it. You can
We got it
volunteer
here.
it. Okay, you can volunteer at organic farms, and some of those might be more permaculture style.
Mhm.
There's yeah, there's a lot to permaculture, and pretty much what you're saying, permaculture covers all of that.
Is there like a book we can read? Or?
And this is not a new thing. I mean, permaculture is not like it's just it's a created word for it's a coined term for how for an approach of thinking and applying that thought to the natural world.
I think it was.
So Mango just said something then. What did you say, Mango?
I said, is there like a book that we can read? Or?
Is there a book? You mentioned a book earlier on, actually. What was that author you mentioned earlier?
Oh, Ben Laws.
That's
He has a woodland. If you search Ben Law and woodland, you'll find the books. There's a couple books, I think.
Thank you.
Let's see. I put out an introduction to permaculture video, and it's a pretty good overview of it, and I have a few more coming. So there's that, but people really just have to dive in and use some of that flat earth energy for permaculture, and you won't regret it. You know, some of that adventurous, optimistic outlook on life, you know, that can go very far. Yeah.
Oh, definitely. Well, definitely. I think there is the key. The key is knowing how to make it work, but you know, getting yourself towards being on the land. You know, whatever trajectory that requires for the individual. And there's local challenges and local opportunities, I suspect. So you know, it's one of those things that would be nice to keep touch with your site and see whether you you know, how you get on, and see what other references can be brought to bear, because I think that collectively we can share ideas. You know, even though I'm a bit pessimistic, sharing the same plot of land, I think definitely we can share ideas.
Yeah.
I want my own. I don't need to own it. I've said this a number of times. I don't need to own the land. I just need a piece of land that I can use in my lifetime, or for a period of time. You know, because I rent my house at the moment. I've never really wanted to kind of put a lot of effort into the garden, because, you know, it's only a rental, and here today, gone tomorrow kind of things. You know, when it comes to permaculture, there's this perma means like permanent, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, we and our birthright was to have a piece of land, actually. So, you know, this is all we're asking for is a piece of land. We're not going to get given it by the system. I know that, but I think
well, naturally, your family would be on a piece of land, and you would have been born, and it would have been hand in hand. So you wouldn't have been issued land; it just would have been there.
Absolutely. And you know, coming from South Africa, there's some regions in South Africa that have never, or have had very little westernization, and the people have certain advantages because of that. And I was one time happened to be hiking through this area, and some of the local guy, he invited me to break bread with him and eat some corn. And we're sitting up on the top of the hill outside of his mud hut, and he down to the bottom of the hill, and he says, "That's my mother and father's house is down there at the bottom of the hill. That's where I was born." And that's the nature of the way that it is in those more kind of traditional ways, was that there was family land. You know, you farmed it, you you grew your entire livelihood came from that land, and it stayed in the family. And but they're losing that. I mean, they're having to give up that land, and or starting, there's charges and banking and all this business coming in, so it does start to wreck that opportunity. But yes, I agree. We should have a piece of land in the family.
I
And it
mean,
should be sorry.
that's how you pass on knowledge too, because
Mm.
even if you don't know your grandparents, you didn't grow up with them or whatever, you can still see the patterns they put into the land, how they planted things, how they interacted with nature. There's still those signs left, and so that's sort of a permanent place to pass on knowledge too.
Mm. Yeah. The thing is that there's communities of farmers. I suspect I can't speak. I spent a lot on my uncle's farm as a child, but those communities in South Africa are being decimated by the rise of the so-called global food market, and so there are these farming communities, and maybe the same in America, but where the people have left so much have left the land, and it's decimated those communities. So they could very well do with the infusion of flat earthers. I mean, other people who could come in and add some energy and some new life to this wonderful land of ours.
Yeah. So, as far as the people in where you live, are any of them into what you're into, or are they all kind of doing the zombie thing?
Yep. I mean, I know very few flat earthers. I mean, I know, a few around London and a few in England, but in terms of my local neighborhood, there was a Globe Light tour last year, and it came. They had a bus, a caravan with like research flat Earth in huge letters all over it, right? And was driving around the country, and I invited Harry and Jason to come and spend the night with me one night on tour. They parked their van in my driveway, and it has huge letters research flat earth on it, right? So none of my neighbors could have missed it, but not a single neighbor has asked me about that. And so no, I think the uncomfortable reality of the situation right now is that the majority of people are munching the Kool-Aid, and they are the zombies.
Yeah.
So I'm afraid there's not a lot of, at the moment anyway, but that's I'm okay with that, because we had to realize in the last year or two that we are trailblazing. We are going against the system. The system is going to try and hold people as much as it can from taking this route, but in time, I am hoping that the trickle will become a flood, and there will be people leaving their schools en masse. It won't be a big deal to pull your kid out of school anymore. It'll be a matter of course. It'll be, yeah, everyone's, people are doing that without much thought. There's a lot more people moving back to the land and doing the sorts of things that mean we need to sort of live in a permaculture kind of way to get the best harvest and the most from our lands and so on. But I have to say that the majority of people would still much prefer to have a machine run over the land, throw a little bit of poison down, keep the weeds back, and get a few £100 per ton of their whatever they're selling, and sell hundreds of tons at the end of the year. That's how you know, and everyone's been through business school and they know about the models of how to, you know, make something more profitable and to, you know, get the highest this, no, whatever. So, you know, I'm not, there's not a crowd of me at the moment. But we, you know, we're hopefully going to be able to lay some paths down for others to follow.
Yeah, it's very important to sort of set examples, because we can't control people's lives. So, you know, the best we can do is just show them what could be done. And
Yep.
everybody's in a different point in their life and probably spiritual development. So yeah, you definitely have to be understanding, but
And
those of
patient.
us, those of us that are willing to, we need to start. We have a lot of things to do to start that transition back to the natural.
Hey, it may be the case in like 5 years time or 10 years time that, you know, you've got enough people that have come into this awakening, that you got farmers, landowners going, yeah, you know, shit, I have 1,000 acres here, you know, I don't need all of this land. I'm willing to, you know, parcel a few sections off and lease it out for 20 years or 30 years or something, you know, to people who have a, you know, a genuine interest in it. But I think we're a little ways off from that.
I think that, well, I was talking about that project of getting land collectively and setting up a permanent site for both flat earth and permaculture. But if there was an example like that, maybe more people, or a type of model that could be reproduced, not cookie cutter, but sort of a kind of like permaculture. It's an application depending on the type of land or whatever. But that could set an example to where people will start volunteering their land, or people perhaps pass it on, just like how people set up, I don't know, bird sanctuaries, or, you know, public tour places for people with interesting things on their land. But yeah, I think if I forgot what I was going to say.
That's okay. I mean, I think something that I've been thinking about is how do I make a small parcel of land viable? How do I make it such that you know, I'm able to buy the other things that I need to feed the family for the year and to clothe them and so on. So sometimes getting into some of those niche products like mushrooms or the microgreens or some of those things that you can perhaps you know, do something that's beyond organic, you know, it's and then it has a sort of higher resale value or retail value that you can, you know, so you don't need an awful lot of the crop, but you can grow enough yourself that it yields you or nets you a little bit of a decent income. So if you've got ideas on those kind of things, if they come to you as they come to you, then it's probably worth, you know, sharing that kind of thing. I was thinking about it because I was thinking about it with this hemp project or this pilot that I was trying to get involved with. As you know, if you can go to that high end supplier or retailer or manufacturer who's looking for a very high quality of product, then, you know, maybe there's a way of making things, growing things that are going to be, you know, valuable enough. Because as I say, my biggest challenge for me is how do I, within a few years, get to a point where the project is self-sustaining. I think that's one of the kind of realities for a guy who has a family. You know, if it was just me, I could live in a tent for a year. I have lived in a tent for a year. I could, but I mean, I could, you know, I could rough it in a way that perhaps a family who's had 20, 30 years of the heliocentric, decent salary every month, payday kind of lifestyle. How do you wean them from that to bones of the arse? We don't have enough money to we got to don all of our socks. Because this is one of the things. This is something that actually is one of the challenges with the flat Earth and the kind of move away from the system and so on. Is that it's almost like you choose that, or you go and live in a cave, or you unchoose the system, and you now got to live like you're in the dark ages. The night, the candles at night, and it's that kind of thing, which is less than appealing to a whole bunch of people, I have to say.
Yeah, reality is that the natural system is not at all like that. That's the unnatural system's sort of programming to get you to not turn to the natural system for things. They make you think that it's so hard, it's all this work, and just sit on your couch and go for convenience and have people deliver stuff to you like you're a king, depending on a slave system. But the natural system, it supports you. So it's like how do I say it? It's where you get true security. It's where you get true health, awareness, perspective, connection. It's where you get everything, really. Most people focus on people because they live in cities, and the only thing left natural in cities are the people. It's all concrete desert and just people everywhere. So it's all about drama and the rat race and all that stuff. But when you get back to a balanced natural system, you're surrounded, just physically, you're surrounded by animals, plants, all these different things, and your perspective really changes. So
sure.
I definitely encourage everybody to at the very, very least, stick a toe in the water, and you'll realize that it's much more pleasant in the natural system than you ever thought could be possible.
Awesome. Well, that's a ringing endorsement, and I love being back out in nature, and I want to make that work. But yeah, they are obviously, in the same way as pulling the old kids out of the school age 10 and 12 is, there's a lot of obstacles and things to overcome, but it's definitely worth dipping the toe and doing a little bit of a home grow, start growing stuff from home.
Yeah, start small, because you'll be supported by the successes you have, and you'll get more energized by it, and it grows and grows and grows.
Go to farmers markets, talk to farmers.
Yeah, pay attention to your sources, the sources of your actions, your thoughts, what you're putting in your body, everything really. And if you really want to go, like, we can tie into the unnatural system as much as needed. For instance, the monetary system, we can do that right now and then transition later. And there's plenty of people that have discussed how to make money through permaculture and all that stuff. And that subject's been covered, pretty well. So you don't have to rely on me. You can just go dive in and research that aspect.
Cool.
And permaculture has been around since, the late 70s, and it's a timeless sort of application to life. And, the solutions to all of our problems are going to be simple, because otherwise there is no solution. And the simple solutions are timeless. And we can do this, and we'll see the repercussions of our work in a relatively short period of time.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing how your project unfolds over the years ahead. Hopefully, I'll keep an eye on that, and I'll hopefully keep you appraised with my project and getting myself back into the land, because I mean, little makes me feel happier than that. And my favorite times as a youngster was on my uncle's farm, farming. So for me, it all makes absolute sense. And, Flat Earth has really reminded me of our place in nature and the importance of our connection to nature. So I'm very much trying to take myself back that way.
It's a change of our perspective, right? From outside of Earth back to inside, back to Earth, down to Earth.
Yeah. Have you? Here's a. This is going to be my last question for the night. Is, have you come across this research on Tartaria at all?
Yeah, a little bit.
So, I don't know what to make of it all, but what strikes me is that there was a time, maybe not an awful long time ago, where people were living in very grand buildings, and the design of these buildings is phenomenal. The quality of the build is phenomenal, and the remaining architecture and artwork and so on of the like the Sistine Chapel type painting, that kind of thing. So has it made you wonder whether these people were in touch with nature, or were they also disconnected?
The thing is that you don't know the natural aspects surrounding those buildings. So you don't know the setting it was in. We can see what it is like today, but we have no idea what it was like in the past. So it's really speculation. But I would say that if you look at a lot of examples of natural people today, if they build out of earth and things, those, depending on the climate and how you maintain the house, that might end up lasting hundreds or even thousands of years. But if they're building, huts out of bamboo and whatever, that will just be recycled in a short time. So you won't see any lasting, things you can find archaeologically later. But so I don't know. It's all, the history is very much speculation, I think, at this point.
Yeah, I guess the reason why I asked that question is because I do think about, how am I meant to set myself up in the way that is appropriate and in line with nature and so on. And what did these people know that we don't know, that they apparently lived in with such grandeur? Were you see, it could be the case that the Tartaria, or that empire that we see, those buildings that we see, were the last knockings of a previous dynasty or a previous empire that had itself gotten lost.
Could be.
And had just gotten to a point where people were living excessively and were building these extravagant buildings, and so they were themselves not in touch with nature anymore. But again, I'm speculating, and I just wonder, because it's that question of, are you meant to go and live in a shack? Is the most natural way of living is with stick and mud houses, really. I mean, one might argue that's the most natural way. But if there was a higher culture that came before us, and they managed to balance permaculture, living with the land, but also, lived in these beautiful houses, how did they achieve that? And how did they get that balance? I know we can't know, but it's just food for thought.
Yeah, I mean, the weird part is how, like, if they're super giant, then how much time were they spending on that, and was it worth it? And if you're just using technology just for the sake of technology, how much consciousness do you really, or awareness do you really have? Yeah, if I was living in one of those buildings, or you don't really live in a building, you take shelter, but I would be a lot more comfortable if somehow it incorporated plants inside or something. I don't know. I'm way more comfortable outside than inside.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's just a curious thing, because I agree. I think that we're comfortable in nature, but what were these people doing? All building these fantastic, beautiful buildings, and were they also out of disconnected from nature? And one of the curiosities with this buildings of this era is that they didn't seem to have toilets, or didn't seem to have a need for toilets. So, our whole relationship with food and so on might have been completely different back then. But it's just one of those interesting asides, I think.
Yeah, but it would definitely, unless they were like giant people with advanced technology, some of those giant stone buildings, just, I don't know why you would go through the trouble.
Oh yeah, no, I think those people were bigger, much bigger. Those people who the Acropolis and those really vast buildings. I was in Italy a few years ago on holiday, and there's these old towns up on hills with these massive walls and these humongous gates with doors. Back at the time, I hadn't twigged to the idea of giants. I was trying to figure out to myself why. Was these because they had these cots that were laden with bales of hay or whatever, so high that they needed to have these gates that were so massive? But that doesn't make sense now, because if you think, it's such a huge building project to do something on such a scale, for people that were apparently much simpler than us. So no, there was definitely a different relationship with the, with the land and with the buildings, and perhaps in the way that they were able to build exquisitely. Perhaps they could do that just by thinking about it, rather than having to actually labor for it. They were able to steward the earth a lot better too. Having said all of that, we think that whatever civilization was before us got washed away by some kind of event, maybe a mud flood or something like that. So they clearly got something wrong, because there was a reset, or a cataclysm was brought upon that civilization. So perhaps it is the case that they had totally lost touch with nature themselves, and nature then brought about a hard reset. So it might be the case that this current paradigm that we live in is trying very hard to reset itself by forcing people into an unnatural way. So it gives more impetus, perhaps, for us to find our way back to the land.
Yeah, definitely interesting. I have a natural sort of instinct or inner drive to connect to the natural, and the whatchamacallit, where's it going with that? Totally forgot. Anyways, I'll just bring up something else. People don't have to get into permaculture and be on the land doing it and all that stuff before they can talk about permaculture. So we need to start talking about things like permaculture more, at the very least. And if you're one of those people that's holding the door open for the prison we've been put in, don't just talk about inside the prison and what's negative. Also talk about what's outside that door, so we can get people flowing out and doing stuff in the real world, versus just kind of, talking about the deception forever. We need to live our lives. We need to return to the natural world, the real world.
Totally, 100%. I think that's spot on. And give people that that nugget of the insight that it's possible for them to do things differently. That's why I mentioned my son not having a birth certificate whenever I get the opportunity, because I want for people to know that that's not just a fake thing, that they put out on the internet. It's a real possibility for people to, to do it without subjugating themselves to this criminal system in the same way. I mean, I'm not saying that we never have, because like I said, the police came knocking on the door saying, we've had a report about your child being barefoot, and they passed that on to the social services, and so on. And I mean, they don't actually have an agency over him. We learned that last year when they came for my cannabis plants. The police forced their way into my house and stole my plants. And, they said after that, they said, because of the, the nature of their raid on me, they were able to say, send the social services here. But the social services weren't able to act on my baby boy. They only had agency on my older son. He was 17, and so they were able to kind of question him, but they weren't able to take any agency over my younger boy. So I like to tell people that, because it is the case that we can do things differently, and we do need to show by example, and we do need to give people an insight into, there are other ways. We do need to be patient. We may not be able to break away from the school, the job, the flat in a built up area, but I'm at that point where once my oldest son finishes his high school exams in a few months' time, I don't have any reason to stay inside of, within 20 kilometers of central London as I do. I can move a long way from here and get much closer to the land and be in a town where I can start to kind of make contact with people who are farming, and as you say, because it is a bit about making contacts and becoming a part of a community rather than outside of it. So there's definitely ways for us to change this paradigm, one day at a time, one plant, one seed at a time.
And for anyone, to reiterate, for anyone who feels like they'll never do this and they're never going to leave their apartment and they're just going to continue doing what they've been doing, you can at least bring it up and talk about it at the very, very least. I mean, if we just talk about it more, if permaculture is just used more, then people will at least have that seed planted.
Indeed. And that's what this is about, planting seeds. And hopefully tonight's conversation has helped a few more people think of the possibility for themselves.
Yeah. I mean, you guys over in the UK really have a bit of an advantage in the fact that you're a little more closer together location wise. So,
and we don't have Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Geographically, yeah. I suppose that's true. Yeah. That's true. Everybody's on each other's doorstep.
Yeah. So, you guys probably would be closer to doing a collective project, whereas over here everybody's so spread out. Yeah, but it's like I said, it's the preparation for something like that really would fix the solutions even before you do a collective project or whatever.
Okay, well, I'm going to continue to look for people to work with, for opportunities and so on. And if I have something good to share with you, I'll definitely get in touch and do what I can. But yeah, there's probably, I mean, I know, sort of stemming from this conversation, I will try and make contact with some of the sort of permaculture projects that are going on generally. I just put this on people's radar. If you're in the UK, there's a charity. I don't know if the right word is charity, but there's an organization called Hempen, and I think they're only based up in the north of England at the moment, and they've got like a hemp growing project that people can volunteer their time for, to get involved with, and it's called Hempen, HEMPEN. And it's the sort of thing that if you get involved in it, it's like a stepping stone and might lead you to getting involved in some other project, or doing other growing things and so on. Because we do need to kind of establish a way forward for people, and I'm looking for that. And if anyone has any ideas, please hit me up on Trinity 4 and we can talk.
Cool.
Well, is there any other questions from the panel? Karen?
I'm
Yeah,
here,
most
so
of this.
I didn't get my mute button up quick enough. We have been now going for over 2 hours. Do you think that's enough time? Because obviously, I think everybody's beginning to feel a little bit tired. Unless you want to do give anybody in the chat room. Well, it is tiring though, talking for a while, isn't it? Not being rude or anything. It is.
Oh yeah, it's a weird, like when you do this, it's hard to focus on all the different things happening.
Shall
So
I
it
just
kind of
see,
uses your energy.
is there in the chat room, is there any questions for plain permaculture or Trinity 4 before we go?
And all of this is a perception change. The prison that we've been put in is mostly in our minds. So if we if we return to a natural perspective, then our perceptions and actions will change in turn. So
I like that.
Can I just ask, Mango's on the chat as well. Mango, have you got any more questions you'd like to ask? Or you've been very quiet and he's been very good and listened. But have you got any?
I haven't heard him.
Yeah, he asked a few things, but everybody was talking. But I don't know if he's there. Mango.
Yeah, I'm still here.
There he is. Mango.
Yeah, you were talking about sending your kid. And
I can't hear him.
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
The audio is
speak into
very
the
poor.
microphone a little bit more.
Is that better now?
Just go for it. Go on, Mango.
You're talking about sending your kids to school as being a choice, but where I'm from, it's
Anything happening?
Yeah, he's saying basically, you say that it's a choice, but from where he comes, go on, Mango.
It's illegal to not send your kids to school.
Oh yeah, about sending children to school. It's not a choice. I think it's like that in America a bit though, isn't it? You're supposed to send them to school. You're supposed to give them vaccinations. It's all sort of legally done now, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, they tell you it's a forced thing, but it's really an offer. And it's all by consent. But yeah.
That's the big trick, my friend, is that a lot of, and it takes some stones, and it takes a bit of getting kind of used to, but you actually have a lot more power. I've had some things. It's not all, I don't want to make out like it's all good news, because I tried not to pay some speeding fines and shit like that. And when it came to court dates, I chickened out. I was like, okay, I'm gonna pay for this to go away, man. But when it came to the birth certificate thing, I knew that the best that they could do was fine me. And I was willing to take that risk, and they didn't even do that in the end. All they did was threaten me and say, or try to threaten us and say, your child might struggle to get into school, and and also get access to sort of medicals and so on. But actually, if we ever wanted to use the medical system, he could go there. It would just be a matter of registering with a GP and so on. Obviously, when it comes to him going to school, there won't be any agency that can come and say, hey, he should be going to school. I know once there's a birth certificate, then they're going, yeah, has your child registered for school and so on. In this country, you can do homeschooling as a first kind of way through that. There are certain, unfortunately, there are certain kind of official inspections that might come with that.
Yeah, you still sign up.
Yeah. But actually, yeah, when it comes to what Plain Permaculture was saying about it being an offer, I think that's where we need to get a lot smarter. Is that the acts of Parliament, and it's the same in Oz. The acts of Parliament are acts, and they're only acting on you if you consent, and we inadvertently do that all the time. So the same with the guy comes around canvassing to put your name on the electoral roll here, and I took my name off a few years ago when I realized what was going on. I'd even worked at elections back 10 years ago or something, what I mean? So I was in the system. But, I took my name off the electoral roll, and they come around every year pestering me to kind of be on the roll. And they threaten you with £1,000 fine or something along those lines. And I've never had any of that. And the guy comes to my door, and I give him a little explanation, and he goes away meekly going, okay, well, that's your choice. So there's a lot of the same with the birth certificate. They threatened £1,000 fine. That was what my wife thought. Well, they're going to fine us and all this. No, they're not going to fine you. Not if you don't accept the terms. Not if you don't buy into it. But I take the point at face value. It's swimming upstream.
Is it because I is flat? Hi, I have a farm in Jamaica. One big one going to waste. I'm applying for a weed license. Get at least get last from a a Cali grower. It's going to be a refuge and commune.
Cool.
Wow. Where?
Jamaica. That's crazy. Jamaica.
Wow, that's some good weather they got out there, man. That's what I'm looking for, some decent weather.
Yeah. We'd all live outside a bit more if we had nicer weather.
Yeah.
Let's go. We've had 6-7 months of crap just now.
Yeah. We have permaculture and permatan. It is about having some good weather, and it does make a huge difference. But anyway, that's an aside. Yeah.
Yeah,
so
but there's.
Sorry, go on.
I was going to say about the weather. There's different advantages and disadvantages to different areas. So
yeah, not enough rain, too much sun. It all is a balance.
Yeah. And warmer places like tropical places, it's really hard to form soil because of how much growth happens. And then if there's not growth, it's just erosion from all the water. So there's a trade-off for sure.
Just coming back to the pulling children out of school thing, there's very few people that have got to the point where both the husband and the wife in the family are equally on board with the nature of the game against them. You need both. Yeah. You need both on board. And when it comes to a birth certificate, it's the mother that the state are after. She is the informant, and without the mother, they got nothing. So, and with the father, the father's worthless. He's a side player. So, and it tends to be men who've kind of found flat Earth and been willing to look at the ugliness of the lies first. So oftentimes the wife comes on board later, but the couple they need to be unified in the willingness to kind of face up to the letters, the barrage of letters that are going to come from the state threatening shit. the earth's going to end, or the world's going to come to an end if you don't do this and you don't do that. You've got to be unified in that. And then when it comes to taking your kids out of school, where their friends are already, their best friends are in school, and you're going to do what with them? You're going to, you don't have a farm for them to go and work on. It's, they're going to sit in your apartment and watch TV while you're still at work, kind of thing. There is a whole, it doesn't, unfortunately, because we've realized that the whole thing is some kind of complex game. It doesn't mean everyone else falls into line behind that. And maybe 10, 15, 20 years time that this conversation will seem moot. But for now, through my experience, it's like every relative I have outside of my house, pretty much every relative I have thinks I've lost my mind. And so if I was then also pulling my children, so the grandchildren or whatever, out of school and affecting their potential career and their life ahead of them and all that sort of shit, aside from the kid themselves feeling like you was, doing something wrong, the entire neighborhood would be on your case going, what are you doing? So it's also a matter of being patient. It's a little bit like planting your apple tree.
You can't always live life through everybody else's eyes. If you feel that's right for you, that's everybody else does what they want to do. So, you have to not worry so much always about other people. But I know it hurts because, I've had a family that laugh at me. But they want me to believe they're on some spinning ball travelling at about Mach 80 in 3 different directions,
Well,
Yes.
how long has it been since you've confronted them with that information?
It's okay for me. My kids are coming round slowly. They bought me a Flat Earth T-shirt, Flat Earth mug, a poster I got for Christmas.
Because
with a smile on their face, like it's all right. The old dear, we've given her some goodies.
Yeah, I mean, like, my point is that I brought up a lot of alternative and real life, or how should I say it, like conspiracies, or the negative stuff going on early on with my family. So I've gotten to the point where they accept me and what I'm saying way before Flat Earth. So my point is that people will come around. It just takes a little bit of time.
I hope you're right. I used to
mean,
think that
maybe not agreeing with you, but accepting what you're saying.
Yeah, but it's one thing until you absolutely accept that the banking system is a complete a theft of your energy and your credit. You're never going, the world is never going to stand up against usury. It's never going to stand up against this corrupt system. And the same is true with understanding that the entirety of your history, your science, your biology, your geography, all of these things, the mathematics that's designed to mess with your mind, all of these things are part of the same system. You see, these same people will say, oh, yeah, it's all right, Plane. We know that you think the earth is flat, but now we're just going to go off to the doctor and get our vaccines before going off to get educated by the state. Right.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
So it's one thing for you to kind of say, oh, or for your family around you say, yep, okay, we know you say the earth is flat. That's not the same as going, fuck it. The entire thing the entire thing is screwed against us. The entire edifice of government, all governments across this plane are in cahoots with the banking and the military and the pharmaceutical industrial complex. All of these things are in the same soup that's designed to dumb you down, rob you of your energy, poison you, have you sick, and die totally ignorant. But you're going to go along with that. So that's a very different place. And you're not going to get those people to say, yeah, okay, let's quit the school. Let's go and start up our own thing. Because we've had to go through this transformation. Hey, we've had to be able to step through all of these things and go, shit, the entire thing is a fucking lie. And now I've got my wife on board with that. And so she's willing to kind of take these hard yards, upset her Sex in the City kind of ideal of what life should be like, or what is it, Stepford Wives version of the world. You know, that kind of thing is a thing of the past when you come this way.
Yeah,
But
Dave, I think it's very like the Stepford Wives. That's
Yeah.
what they want.
But you've got to be willing to kind of see that for being what it is, that it's a stage, and be have the courage or the fortitude to say, shit, I'm walking away from that. I cannot put my energy into it. I cannot contribute to it, and so it starts to make being part of those things harder and harder to do. But unfortunately, much as I would love for this not to be the case, it just feels to me now 4 years. I've 3.5 years since I told someone else that I thought was pretty smart. I told them that the Earth is flat, and they're still not talking to me. So for me, the idea that actually this system might be set up with people who can see and people who can't see, is a reality that I have to face, and in considering that, I mean, I hope I'm wrong, and I hope one day, there's a switch and there's a consciousness upgrade and all this sort of stuff happens, and then all of a sudden within 10 years the whole world's kind of become agrarian and we love each other and so on. That would be awesome, but I think that's not really how it works, and we have to do the work we do for ourselves, knowing that we might be the only ones that walk this way, but we are hopefully showing the way, lighting the light, so that others may follow, however many.
Yeah, it's a restoration of balance. We're never going to live in a place that's like a sort of utopia, because if there's good and bad, there's always going to be bad. So, yeah. So, I mean, the other thing is that everybody is different. And to me, it's easier to kind of think of a spiritual sort of system where people mature or have different levels of maturity. I mean, if you look at children, you can see that some of them just have an awareness or consciousness.
I think that's the same in spirituality as well, by the way. I think it's people.
Yeah. Yeah. So, like for me, for instance, nobody brought up flat Earth to me. Nobody brought up permaculture. These are things that I naturally either seeked them out or just kind of, I don't know how to say it, was drawn to it. Or if you've ever looked into things like human design, you can see it's kind of like astrology and all this stuff. Basically, it's a mapping of the energies of your body and how it works with the surrounding natural energies. And it seems like a lot of us, or I should say, everybody's at different points in their life and their spiritual development. And so there's some of us that will, within our lifetime, learn things. There's others of us, like I feel like me, that kind of have already known this stuff, and we kind of get a sort of refresher course on life the first sort of 30 years.
With us playing Permaculture and Trinity 4, because obviously we need to talk about these things, because if anything goes wrong in our world, we need to grow things ourselves, don't we?
Yeah.
We've got to get more into community and growing things and learning to grow things. I mean, we should just do it and know it. I mean, everybody else did. Now we're just reliant. If there's anything goes wrong, we're stuffed, aren't we? Because we go, like I say, to the supermarket and buy our plastic food and stuff.
Yeah. And I was going to say, though, that there's some of us that will never, people are starting to call them NPCs or whatever, the zombies. They'll never sort of wake up, but maybe they're not meant to. That's where they are in their sort of development. And, we have to, kind of understand that not everybody's going to, come over to permaculture and all that stuff. But as far as talking to people and the consequences of revealing real information and stuff. I think that we should bring the focus back to reconnecting to the natural system versus exposing all the deceptions. And even things like flat Earth are not as important as things like permaculture, considering we all live on the Earth we're on. It's the behaviors and the thoughts and actions that we're doing incorrectly. It's not, we're living on the correct Earth, no matter what an outer perspective you imagine is.
Yeah. Yes. Although, I mean, I think you probably agree that knowing that it's not a ball spinning in the vacuum of space really centers.
Yeah, very important.
And centers me. It centered me in a way that nothing else has, other than the DMT experience I talk about. But
so, like in your life, maybe that's the trigger for you to wake up, and it is for a lot of people, but
it's not the game. I agree. It's not the the be all and end all. It's you discover that the Earth is centered, and you're the the center of the universe, or this is the center of the universe, and then you get on with making the best of that, given that that, because we were doing whatever we were doing based on living on a Darwinian ball, a Catholic ball. So why did I say Catholic? Oh, because of the Big Bang. Because they gave us that name. And so so I think I agree with you. It's important that we don't lose ourselves on squabbling and come back to nature, and nature is about balance. The squabbling, whether it be ball, AE model, Pac-Man model, or whatever, or all these different kind of things, they're just actually, that's why they love the fight over the vaccines, and they love the fight over whether it was a real terrorist or it wasn't a real terrorist.
On many other things, haven't they?
We're always, and nature is meant to be at balance, and when nature is out of balance, then you see like an overgrowth of weeds or ivy, or problems with certain seeds reproducing and so on. This is an imbalance in nature, and I think we are meant to be, as you say, finding that kind of permaculture harmony with nature, and while we continue to squabble over various differences, we'll never find that balance.
That though, is it? The globe world's all about being in the system and working and bills, and there isn't much time for this sort of nature and relax and being in touch with nature. We've lost that bit. A lot of us have. I'm not saying everybody has. I'm just saying.
Well, this is an interesting point about how we actually spend 48 weeks of the year working our asses off so that we can have 4 weeks on a nice beach and chilling, like in nature. So or 3 weeks or 10 days if you're an American. I think what you're saying is that you, instead of having to save money to go on holiday and be in nature, you are actually living in nature all the time, and so that it really
you live your vacation.
So it takes away that kind of, oh, now I need to go to the Bahamas for a week or lie on a beach kind of need, because you're kind of you're living with nature and you're in nature. So yeah, I think that's some of what you kind of exchange, isn't it?
Yeah, and
I was going to say, and the same as you don't need a gym membership because you're working, so you save money.
Yeah,
you save money like that.
The other thing is that I'm very, very aware of the fact that this information is put on or allowed to go through computers. Like, for instance, YouTube is a lot of why flat Earth is popular, I would say. And the way I got into flat Earth is, or I should say the timing of it was, I was about to quit screens, at least for the most part, and computers and all that stuff. And it was literally the weekend I was going to quit that flat Earth. I stumbled upon a podcast or something about flat Earth. And so it kind of sucked me back into the computers and stuff. And I feel like that's what Google and all those people are aware of. They just want you to come to them for your information, no matter how true it is, because they're still controlling your life through these devices. So the more we can sort of connect in real life and do things in real life, the less we'll be open to that sort of manipulation.
Super. Well, I think that's a good way to end this show, isn't it?
That's really nice. Nicely put. Thank you a lot
Yeah.
for Permaculture. Thank you. Can I just say thank you, everybody in the chat room who's been listening in. The chat room's been buzzing away there. Thank you to everybody. Mwah, chat room. And thank you, Mango, for listening. You've been very quiet there, but listening. Patricia. Thank you.
Yes.
He's like a real mango.
Trinity 4. Yeah. And that's okay. Sorry, Mango.
Yeah. Yeah, I got a question for Plain. How do you water your plants? Do you use the tap water or
I can't really hear you. You're a bit fuzzy.
I just get nothing.
I can hear birds in Australia. I can hear them.
can you hear me now?
A little bit fuzzy. Go for it. Go and try say it again.
Yeah, so I was just wondering, so do you use tap water or rainwater to water your plants?
He's asked, do you use tap water or rainwater for the plants?
For me, I use rainwater as much as possible, and we're making more. We're tying more structures into collecting rainwater and stuff. I do have a well too, and then I just still water sometimes to drink and stuff. But yeah, I use rainwater as much as possible, and then set things up for passive irrigation too.
Mango, any more questions?
No, that's all.
Oh, thank you, my darling. So thank you. At least you got in at the end, Mango.
Yeah.
Can I just say as well, we did this is something completely separate, but we did last week put a video out of 3 stories. We're still taking my stories, okay? Everybody has a story. We've heard tonight playing Permaculture, a bit of Mango, and Trinity 4. So anybody who's got my story can email it, send a video, or have a hangout with us. So I'll just put my email address in the chat room. So we're still taking my stories. We're a community, aren't we? And everybody's got a story.
So how are you doing that? Are people going to come on a hangout or?
Well, some people are a bit more shy. So we've had email. We've had we can have videos. We've had video from Jason, and we actually had a hangout with someone else. So it's anyway, but obviously maybe better for hangout. You know, it was to give back to the chat room. You know, we've had so many big people to our channel, but really we're with the people. So this was about the people, for the people. Patricia loved this idea, and yeah, we're still taking my stories.
Cool.
Yeah, cool.
Anyway, on that note, thank you so much for talking and what you've said. Brilliant. Thank you, because we need more of these kind of talks. We're not going to change unless we talk more about these things, are we? So
people need to be aware. Yeah, for sure.
Thank you so much for your time. Anyway, we'll say goodbye on air, but on the panel we'll say goodbye off air. But to everybody, thank you
Hey,
for
and a shout to your pal with the cancer.
sheeps and neeps. I'm gonna, when we finish the hangout, I'm putting a little post out about sheeps and neeps. Okay,
All right.
so I will do that
Best
after.
wishes to him.
Yeah, love and thanks to everyone, and extra love to Sheeps and Neeps.
Sure.
But yeah, for sheeps and neeps. Anyway, on the hangout, thank you so much, everybody. It's goodbye from us. Patricia, are you there? I think Patricia's not there. I don't know where she is. Anyway, mwah.